Hello, hello. Says I'm live. I am live. It looks like the camera's a little, I don't know, maybe the connection's a little dodgy. I hope that there's flow here. Let me just drop into my body for a sec. If you would like to join me in this process, let's receive a deep inhale all the way to the root. Fill to the crown. And then surrender the breath. I am a clear channel for the divine to flow through, and I am divine. Let the portal be open. The portal is open. Which makes me think, this morning I was responding to a message that I got on Instagram, and I found myself writing that dance is the portal. What did I say? I think, well, now the words are gone, but I think what I said, because now I'm seeing different configurations of it. Dance is the portal, and you are the oracle. We are the oracle. We are what wants to come through. We are coming through. And it's like, how much permission are we going to give ourselves to fully access that within ourselves? So that is my preface to the flow that I want to allow to come through me today, because I've been ruminating on this not only for years and for decades, and ever since my consciousness activated to this concept. I've been embodying it since I was a small child. And so I want to bring words to what I have learned through embodied experience in relation to rhythm, dance, and breath, all as portals to I want to say altered states of consciousness, but perhaps I'll change it to expanded states of consciousness or more connected states of consciousness. I think we think of altered because it's not the consciousness that we are taught to tune into in this reality. In this society, in this world, upon the earth at this time, we're very much entrained to sense and see from a very limited perspective. And what I've found through not only studying myself, studying many lineages, many ancient cultures, many unbroken lineages that have survived despite patriarchy's attempt to suppress and destroy. Excuse me. That we actually have the ability to sense in expanded states of consciousness at all times. It's just, do we know how to access it? And so I'm just going to kind of rewind it all the way back to as a child, I found myself quite often dancing alone in my room in states of release and rapture. And later, when I had the languaging to kind of crystallize what those experiences were for me, was I was utilizing dance as a bridge into reality, especially when the outer external reality was painful or uncomfortable or incongruent with my soul and my deeply sensitive being. Dance was my medicine. Dance was my therapist. Dance was my therapy. Dance was my way of dropping into union with the divine, which I, wasn't consciously aware of it at the time, but looking back now, I can see that it was the spirit of dance that carried me through so many dark, confusing times. It was like an anchor. It was like a hub to tether into so that I could withstand storms in the external world. And so this carried on through my life into my young adulthood, and as I entered into being a teen and a young adult, I started to use and abuse substances in a really self-destructive way. I was definitely out of connection with my truth and with my divinity and with the truth of who I truly am and the truth that I'm a sacred being. I had no conscious contact with that. I was definitely, my consciousness was very much offline at that point, but I still had the life preserver of dance. And even in the times when I would be really, really in the throes of substance use and abuse, I would dance. I would dance ecstatically, and it was continuing to be my life preserver. And I can say that at a point when I was definitely quickly spiraling down and out of control, it was a very pivotal moment in my life where I was about to drop out of college, and I decided to stay because my mother was encouraging me to stay and get a degree. And so I stayed, and I was like, I'm only going to stay on my terms that I am passionate about what I'm studying. And it was dance. I discovered there was a dance major, and when I committed myself fully to dance, which I had always like dreamed of as a kid, I always just wanted to be a dancer. I mean, you guys, if you're my age or older, you remember Solid Gold dancers. I mean, like, those women were like it for me. I would watch them on TV and I would dance with them, and I'd be like, oh my god, like, I want to be a Solid Gold dancer. And it's funny because now I'm thinking my name Golden, and I love to dance, and I still dance 44 years later. So in college, when I was taking dance, I immersed myself in dance. I'm just giving you some backstory so you have context, but I was blessed enough to take classes with incredible, I call them dance priestesses, but the rest of the world would call them dance professors. But I mean, they were literally crone, elder, activated goddess priestesses of dance. They were the embodiment of the spirit of dance, and they were embodying, it brings tears to my eyes just to think, to see elder women fully embodied, devoted for decade after decade after decade to their beloved dance, and their devotion to creating dances or allowing dances to come through, and collaborating with musicians and teaching younger or new people who are newer to the dance and to the discipline. And so shout out to my dance professors. Melissa Nunn and Patricia Sandback especially were two goddess priestess dance teachers that I had at San Diego State University. And in our classes, we were blessed enough to have a master drummer come and drum for us every day. And his name was Omar. And he was incredible because he would fuse together. I mean, he was a master, and he was a master of multiple vocabularies of rhythm. And so he would weave them together in the most fascinating ways. And I truly believe that he was a channel. I mean, when he would play, I was talking about this the other day, I would have this experience from, like, the first time it happened to me in a technique class, I was like, whoa, what the fuck is going on? It was wild, but I could hear voices. I could hear singing in the studio. And at first I was like, wait, what? And it was him drumming, just him drumming, my teacher talking, all of us dancing. And I was like, does anyone else hear that? Like, where are these voices coming from? I was tripping the whole class. And it just continued, and it was like choral toning voices. And I went up to him after class and I was like, I want to ask you about something. I heard singing voices while you were drumming all through class. And he was just like, yeah. I was like, what is that? I had to know. And the way he put it to me was like, it was spirit. It was spirits and spirit singing, and the codes, the rhythms, and the drums call spirit. And also the drums create tonalities of voices singing. So it's like, who is actually the singer, what is being sung, and it's like, it's spirit, really. Spirit moves through the drum, spirit moves through the body, spirit moves through the breath, spirit moves through sound. And like I was saying in the beginning of this, we are born into a world that doesn't acknowledge that per se. We very much utilize, well, not very, it's pretty, okay, pop culture is, we utilize dance and music for entertainment, right? And which there's a high value for entertainment and relaxation and just enjoying and celebrating life. But what we're not taught is, well, not in this culture anyways, but it's not taught to us, it's not common knowledge that we can utilize simple things like our bodies, that if you're a human, you have one. If your consciousness is embodied in a human body temple, you've got the full ability to access the expanded states of consciousness whenever you want, 24/7. It's just a matter of, first of all, knowing that, and then knowing how to harness it and taking the journey with yourself. So yeah, what I was saying is that in this world, we're definitely not taught that, and it's definitely obscured. And I mean, with the dawn of patriarchy, you guys know I go on and on about patriarchy all the time, because patriarchy came in and literally silenced the old ways, where this was just common knowledge amongst human beings that we have access to other states of consciousness other than sort of the normal waking realm at all times, and there's ways in, and the ways in are by us tuning in. And if you notice, all of society is set up to invite you to tune out. So especially for somebody like me, I'm a highly sensitive being, highly sensitive. I mean, hello, I'm a Pisces, but that kind of says it all. But and I'm a dancer, so I'm deeply embodied. I'm a deep feeler. I'm a deep thinker. I'm a deep contemplator. And to exist in this world where they teach us at all times, tune out, tune out, tune out, tune out. There's a fucking million ways we can tune out. It's just at our fingertips at all times. I could scroll on my phone. I could, eat. I could drink. I could smoke. I could fuck. I could, shop. I could watch the news and get distracted and get crazy depressed. Like, it's easy to check us out or take us deeply into the pain body so that we want to be numb, so we don't want to feel. So part of accessing the expanded states of consciousness is the tuning inward. And it's beautiful because in all the tuning inward practices, what comes with that is a deeper self-knowing. And with that comes, when you know yourself, it's like this with unconditional self-love and unconditional self-acceptance. These pivots are made when we do the tuning in. When we're tuned out and we're numbed out and we're disconnected from ourselves. I was just thinking about this today. I wept about it today. This morning at my altar, after I did some breath work, I had this massive flowing river of tears release sob in that, wow, like what my body temple has endured and withstood and stayed devoted to me through all of these processes and is like still here with me and still on self-healing mode, excuse me, is astounding. And I was just in awe of how long I was tuned out and why, like compassion for every being and soul and person who feels like it's just too much. So we tune out, or we're utilizing things to bring us pleasure and ultimately that desire for connection, that blissful nectar of connection, of love, of peace, of bliss, of ecstasy, which that is our true nature. And when we're tuned out from it, we have no fucking sense of that. We might hate ourselves. We might be so indoctrinated and programmed about our bodies or the way we are, that we're just not enough or not right, that we are looping incessantly in self-loathing and self-destructive habits and thoughts. And that's very disempowering. And the world is that way on purpose. I hate to say it. That's the truth. What would the world look like if everyone was tuned in and deeply, completely aware of the truth of who they truly are and empowered and coming from a place of love? And then when we do that for ourselves, we're doing it for everyone and everything, right? That's a whole different paradigm. I wasn't raised in that paradigm. You weren't raised in that paradigm. We were raised in a very different fear-based, polarized, dueling type, everyone out for themselves paradigm. It's the patriarchal way. The matriarchal way is communal, connected, interdependent, symbiotic connection with the earth, awareness of connection to source, and the tools to access the expanded states of consciousness for all types of reasons. So you see how I weave conversations all together. Coming back to this idea of what was awakening as a young adult within me when I devoted my life to dance. Along with that came devotion to drumming, to singing, drumming, dancing. And for me, I started to consciously realize, oh my God, these are the tools that help me feel sane in this world. And these are the tools that I pray with. Okay? I was raised in church sort of paradigm where you go, you sit in the bench, you listen to a guy talk to you about a God who's a guy and his son, and like there's, Mary was the Immaculate Conception and she gave birth, but it's like she's a blip on the radar. And shout out to Jesus, like no shade to Jesus, he's dope. But we have to remember that Christianity is, it's part of dogma of a patriarchal paradigm. And yes, it can be totally empowering and liberating when we tune into the Christ consciousness and the truth of Jesus's teachings, along with Buddha and Allah and, all the saints, and Nanda Mayima, Mother Teresa. There's all kinds of genders, all kinds of saints. And in the United States, the focus is definitely on the Christian paradigm. But like I was saying, like I would sit in church and be bored to death. Excuse me. Sip of tea. Listening to the pastor just like drone on and on. The story's not really making sense, and then the songs were very somber. I didn't go to one of those Christian churches that was like hype. I didn't go to a gospel church, which I love going to gospel churches because people are up, they're moving their bodies, they're singing. There's definitely an energy happening. And in my church, it was just like somber dirges. And that's not how I worship. I worship, like even as a kid, wild in nature or dancing like a fucking banshee in my bedroom. Now as an adult looking back, I'm like, that's how I worship. So in school, in college, I came into West African drumming, dancing, singing, and started learning the ways and started studying drumming as well at college and continued to take classes and even like a lot of private sessions with my drumming professor there until he sexually violated me in a one-on-one private session he was giving me. And I was like I think I was like 19 at the time or 20, and I stopped studying with him because that was just fucked, you know. And but I continued to just drum, and I met a partner who was a drummer, and he showed me about Afro-Cuban folklore and the Orisha tradition, which the Orisha is our forces of nature that were brought from Nigeria through the transatlantic slave trade by enslaved peoples through the African diaspora. And so he showed me the style that the way Cuba preserved the Orisha traditions. And when I found that, it was like, oh my God. It was just like, everything just activated in me. It was like, fuck, yes, that's it. Here's this unbroken lineage. And of course, I didn't have the languaging for it back then when I was like 20, 21, right? But I was now part of a community where drumming, singing, chanting, dancing, what I call the Holy Trinity, happen in community. And the whole intention is honoring the forces of nature or honoring ancestors and spirit guides or, ancestors and spirit guides. There's kind of different lineages and traditions according to which thing you're doing. But it was like, holy shit, this thing is alive and well and happening, and like, well, people actually do this. And as a dancer, I was just obsessed with learning the dance. And so I started studying with, by the grace of spirit, Juan Carlos Blanco, my Afro-Cuban, he's a master drummer, dancer, teacher. Happened to be here and happened to move here to San Diego around that time, and I started to study with him, and then started learning the drumming from him, and started studying the drumming and the singing with other teachers as well, and studying how the rhythms of the drums lock and very complicated, nuanced drum rhythms. I mean, we're talking about a very vast vocabulary of very specific drum rhythms that lock in with very specific chants and songs, that lock in with very specific dance movements. And the whole intention is, when done in community, it's calling through the forces of nature that manifest through the priests and priestess. And so they say it's like this: the Orisha is riding the priest or the priestess like a horse. So you say that you're mounted by the Orisha, right? And so when the Orisha or the force of nature comes through, that force of nature is singing, dancing, embodying the human vehicle and giving blessings to the community, giving advice to the community, cleansing the community, and bringing through a vibration that it's unmistakable, and there's no way to fake incredibly tangible and intense change of energy when a force of nature is coming through in a fully activated way in that ceremony setting. And so it just kind of blasted my consciousness awake, online, and open. And, you know, still not at that time, I didn't have the ability to see through the lens or have the languaging around, I'm a white person whose lineage was broken in these earth-based practices thousands of years ago. So for people in my blood lineage, patriarchy came in and just, you know, totally took it away and killed all the people and tortured people who were doing these natural earth-based practices. And I'm going to weave in a few more parts here. So around that time, or a little while after that, I started studying belly dance and Afro-Puerto Rican bomba around the same time, which was about 17-ish years ago. And so in the bomba tradition, it's similar to the Afro-Cuban tradition, where it's communal, it's drummers, it's singing, it's dancing, and it's an opportunity for the dancer. It's different because they call it secular, where it's not like this sacred spiritual, thing, but it is, like at its essence it is, because it's calling together community, and it's creating a space where people can just fucking move through their shit. Like, drum medicine is real. Sound, voice, singing medicine is real. Dance medicine is real. Community connection is real. Creating a sacred circle where the dancer goes in the middle is real. Something happens. So let me tell you something about this with bomba. What I found, what I love, what I think is so amazing and unique about it is when the dancer goes to the center of the circle, okay, so there's drummers and they're all playing a bass rhythm, and there's a primo player who's playing the lead drum. And so in that, the primo player is actually watching the dancer who comes forward and is playing all the articulations. There's vocabulary of movement. So the drummer watches the dancer and is marking it on the drum. So the dancer is actually speaking and creating the rhythms that are soloing on top of all the other drums. Excuse me. And what I would find in the beginning when I first started going to bomba class was I was fucking terrified of that, of being the only person in the middle. I felt like, oh my God, everyone's watching me. I'm totally fucking this up. I don't know what I'm doing. But the people who were teaching me were very gracious, very welcoming. Although actually on my first class, some of the women there were like, come in the middle of the circle, you gotta do it. And I did it. And then afterwards they kind of like critiqued me in a really not in a very like supportive way that would lift me up. It was kind of like cracking down on me, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just like, I just fucking went in there and just felt the vibe, But over time, so actually I would avoid that at the end, doing the piquetes at the end, and in the bate, which is what the circle is called. And I would want to study vocabulary, but was like way too terrified to submit myself to the center of the circle, because I felt way too exposed, vulnerable, way too afraid of doing things wrong and having everyone see me like fumble, So I would literally leave class early and bounce. But there was a moment, and it took me some years to get to this place, where there was one day in class where I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. I mean, and I would make myself prior to that, but it was always like so fucking intense. But this one day I was like, today I'm actually calling in. I am calling in spirit to move through me. And that's when I was a little less connected to me being spirit. So I was like I was just kind of inviting my guides to move through me too. Because I truly believe that my guides did this in other lifetimes. I have several guides who, through ceremony, I have met and understand these were actually their traditions. So yes, I'm a white person practicing traditions of African descent and indigenous blended descent, and I am humble and acknowledging that I am wearing white skin, I'm a white person practicing these beautiful expressions of oppressed people. And it's not lost on me, okay? And I really struggle with the relationship of all of this, of myself to all of this, because I feel it in my soul, and I feel like on fire when I'm doing these things. And I'm also aware, like, I'm a white person doing this, and like I just want to be humble and respectful and honor the traditions. So yeah, that day when I shifted my approach to not make it about me and my ego and whether I was going to do something right or wrong, but I was like, nah, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to allow my guides to move through me. And it changed me. In that moment, ever since, every time I enter the bate, I say a little silent prayer inside of me and I set my intention and I allow the energy to flow through. So I kind of like get my ego out of the way. It's not about the little me, it's about the big me, which is source, and allowing the spirit of dance, the spirit that needs to come through, to come through. Okay, so then simultaneously I was learning tribal belly dance with Heather Stance. And when I saw tribal belly dance for the first time, I had always admired belly dance, but when I saw tribal belly dance, I was like, oh my God, whoa, wow. And I began studying, and with that, I also learned about the frame drum. And so I got a frame drum, I got zills. So in all these traditions, I'm learning the drumming, the singing, and the dancing, although in belly dance, I wasn't really singing. I didn't learn any singing. But I was learning the zills, and I was learning frame drum and doumbek. And what's interesting is that I just want to add this bit. As a child, I remember in 5th grade, there was a school band, and I wanted to be in the drum section of the school band. That's all I wanted to fucking do, and it was all guys. And I was too scared at that time to drum, so I did the clarinet. The clarinet instead. But I so wanted to be one of the drummers, and I didn't. I was too scared to be the only girl. Okay, this is all going to make sense in a second. I'm giving you lots of backstory. So when I found belly dance, I was just like, whoa. I started doing a lot of research about the origins and the roots, and it's kind of a big mystery. There's a lot of theories around the roots of belly dance, and one being that this was a dance done by women for women. It was not performed, it was done in homes, and it still is in many cultures and traditions today. And it was taught through the mothers, daughters, the lineage in that way. And later on it was put on a stage and it was performative and it was done for a male gaze, and that really changed the sort of energy of it. But it felt like when I discovered tribal belly dance that it was coming back to a more ancient time of the sacredness of it and calling in the divine feminine to be embodied, not even calling in, but activating the divine feminine within and embodying it and having it be all around the focus of like, how does the female form move? And there was space for all body types as well, which I really loved. And so I learned all these vocabularies and studied and practiced and performed them and did them in community as well, and just continued to surrender to the energy. And for me, it is deeply healing and it is deeply empowering to do these things. And to take you all the way down, oh God, there's so much to say. Like, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, and I don't want to get off topic because the whole point of me, I was wanting to do this around expanded states of consciousness that come through these tools that we have we have a body, so we have the tools. The other piece is the breathwork piece, where in my earlier life, I would take a lot of psychedelics and I would experience altered states of consciousness in that way, which is really beautiful and amazing. And I definitely believe in plant medicine as ways to access these I believe that there's states of consciousness that are happening all the time, and it's like tuning the frequency and the perspective and the lens that we just innately have to see it and to feel it and to sense it and to embody it. So when I started doing rebirthing breath work, I started having wild psychedelic journeys, expanded states of consciousness, visionary experiences, and just was completely blown away at the power that we have simply just with breath. Like, even if you don't have the ability to move your body, to drum, or to dance in whatever way, you have breath because you're alive, right? And when you unlock the breathing mechanism, which you can do with breath work, you can start to really enjoy breath. You can start to experience deep euphoria, pleasure, peace, relaxation. You can do all kinds of things with breath, but you can also access visionary experiences. And I mean, science has proven that we naturally create DMT in our pineal gland and in our lungs, and potentially other parts of our bodies that we're not consciously aware of yet. But we create DMT. You know, it's beautiful to take in the earth's medicines that stimulate a lot of DMT release in the pineal gland, but I mean, we also have access to it with our bodies and with rhythms. So this is where I want to go. Okay, so let me weave in another piece. I've had that frame drum since I started belly dancing. Probably I got it about 16 years ago. And I stopped playing it for a long time. And when I was going through cancer treatment, chemo to be specific, I kept getting this little nudge to pull my frame drum down off the wall because I had it up on the wall and play it. And so I did, and I would like play the belly dance rhythms that I had learned and just playing. And I would be like, I was taking a different approach with my frame drum where I was like, frame drum, you show me. Drum, spirit of drum, come through. Like, I don't know what the techniques are. I'm inviting the energy to come through me. And so I would just drum, and I would allow the energy to pass through me and connect with the drum and feel the vibration. And the cool thing about frame drum is it's right here. It's right here in your heart space. It's putting out sonic frequencies right onto your body and into your brain. And so I remembered I had this book called When the Drummers Were Women, and I pulled it off my shelf and I pulled it out and I was like, who wrote this again? Oh yeah, Lane Redmond. Okay. I wonder if she's on YouTube. I wonder if she has any. Wow, it looks like my connection's dodgy. And it looks like someone's in here watching. Is my connection dodgy? Can you hear me okay? So yeah, I started looking on YouTube for Lane Redmond because I wanted to see if she had any instructional videos on YouTube. And I kind of went into a Lane Redmond portal vortex on YouTube. Okay, good, thank you. Feel free to chat and chime in too if you want. It's just you and me, kid. And so I was going through and finding instructional videos and just fascinated by Lane's energy. I mean, she is such a special human. And as I was going through the videos, I found a memorial for Lane Redmond. And I was like, a memorial? She's passed? She seems like she would be alive. She's a little bit older than me, you know? But I wouldn't have guessed that she'd had passed already. And so I did a little more digging into the memorial and looking around on YouTube, and I found that Lane Redmond passed from stage 4 breast cancer. And I mean, when I found that, I was like, whoa. The synchronicity of this, at that point, I felt Lane had directed me to take that drum off the wall and to play it and to find her, because she has all these videos, and in the book, it was like, reread the book, because I read it years ago and I'd forgotten what was in it. And at that time during chemo, I needed to reread it. I needed to be re-exposed to this when the women were drummers information that Layne devoted her life to sharing with the world. And she did research in her life where she found thousands of images, ancient images, of women who were very commonly shown with frame drums from matriarchal times. This is pre-patriarchy, okay? And she started to put together all the pieces and found that women were priestesses that used drums and dancing and sound in rites of passages, and ceremony, and for healing, and for, I mean, think of all the different rites of passage. Drums were a part of it, and it was part of the connection, part of the community, part of the connection with source, part of that, the shamanistic practices of utilizing rhythm, song, and dance to access the other dimensions, spirit, pure source consciousness, right? And so I'm like, oh my God, here I am going through breast cancer treatment. Layne Redmond passed from breast cancer. I feel this strong inclination to pull the drum off my wall. Then I'm studying about when the women were drummers and what these were the practices. It was women, mostly women, who had the drums and who were the channels, you know? And so in one of the videos, she talks about how there's different brainwave frequencies, and I think it's like alpha is like the sort of the, I think, I might be messing this up, but alpha is like regular consciousness. Beta is, I think, when we're, I'm not sure, it's like just under alpha. Then it's theta, and then it's delta. And so what she said is that theta is the meditative space, brainwave frequencies, where we have the expanded states of consciousness, and where we have the extrasensory perception, where we become clairaudient, clairvoyant, all clairsentient, all the clairs. And so she said, oftentimes people who meditate to access these places, it's easy to slip unless you're a very practiced practitioner. You can slip into delta, which is sleep. Okay? And so she said, the thing is, a way to suspend yourself in theta is drumming, and drum frequencies take us into that. They allow, it's like a portal. They allow us to sustain theta so we can have the extrasensory expanded states of consciousness experience. And the breath work does the same thing. Certain types of breath work take you into the theta state. So do certain types of yoga. So, and dance, and toning the voice. So you start to see, if you didn't already know all this information, the way that we have these tools to have these shamanistic type experiences where we can do it solo, we can do it in community, and we have the ability to access source in a conscious way and develop that divine unions. Courtney, hi, thanks for leaving a comment. You said, oh wait, it disappeared? Nah, I wanted to see oh wait, here it is. Thank you. I've been searching for ways to connect more wholly in my drumming, definitely checking her YouTube channel out. How magical your experience with her spirit visiting you. Thank you. Yeah, if you search Layne Redmond on YouTube, you'll find a lot. She's fascinating. I highly recommend you read her book, When the Drummers Were Women. And Another piece is when I was researching her on YouTube, I came across Miranda Rondeau, who was was Lane's student. She's got a lot of incredible videos on YouTube as well, and she's also created playlists. So you can go to Miranda Rondeau's channel and study her. She lives in Los Angeles, and actually it's so serendipitous how all these things weave together. I found Miranda on Instagram, and then I found out that a friend of mine, two friends of mine, Allison and Cynthia, were bringing Miranda to San Diego to teach a frame drum workshop and have a drumming ritual. And I was like, oh my God. And I went and I got to study with her because I had only known her from her videos and from Instagram. Another dear, incredible person, carrier of the knowledge. So, and just generous and kind and sweet, and the kind of teacher that you want to study with, the kind of person who facilitates your learning and holds space in a totally non-judgmental and supportive and encouraging way. And so, anyways, I'm weaving it back to, again, being a white person who really struggles with feeling incredibly resonant with these unbroken lineages, and also wanting to be respectful and humble and honoring of the lineages that people of my skin color worked very hard to destroy and oppress and suppress. And so I'm really trying to figure out how to be in right relationship with these practices. And during cancer, I found, again, like more than ever, because I lost my job. My job let me go during chemo, and I had time to just completely devote to healing and fucking going through the treatments, which was gnarly. But when I was able to get up off the couch, I felt a deep, strong inner directive to move and to dance and to drum and to sing and to go in, when I could get out of my house, go be in the communities that I've been woven into for these decades. And so I would go and feel the energy and be healed in the energy, and also dance in my living room. And then when I was able to, I would go to nature and dance very often by the ocean because I live very close to the sea. And so what I was finding was that I was going into, beyond vocabulary, and this is one thing I wanted to say prior. We can learn vocabulary and the technique of dance, drum, song, and these are beautiful ways to get us to the portal and create the portal. And what I have found through my embodied experience is that when the shift happens and I am in that state in my dance of union, and the consciousness is connected fully to the body, to the emotions, to the mind, to all of me are online integrated, and it's like spirits just like activated. That technique, when I'm deep in that space, technique is really kind of like flying out the door, and it's a place beyond technique, and it's wild, and it's primal, and it's a force, and it's natural, and it's energy, and it's graceful, and it has an intelligence, and it has a purpose. And there's deep healing that happens in these places. And so there were times when I was going through my cancer treatment and I would dance, and I started making these little like dance pieces just to post on Instagram to like be like, this is me and here's my healing process. I'm over here like dancing and sobbing and like, you know. And I mean, I see the medicine and I see the raw energy. And when we get our small me ego out of the way, we make space for the expanded full aspect of our being to be, and energy moves through that, helps us heal, helps us express. When we have unexpressed energy and emotions in us, they become stuck and they create blockages. And so, I mean, I'd have times when I would just dance and just fucking weep, or I'd yell, or I'd, you know, all kinds of things, all kinds of ways of expression. Whatever was alive in me, I gave it permission to roll through. And I knew myself, and I know myself enough to hold space where I think, you know, for other folks, it might be wise if you have a facilitator, and I do facilitate these types of intuitive movement releases and rituals and sessions. But it's possible to do it alone, and it's wonderful to also do it in community. I've also facilitated many dance circles and rites of passage where we utilize dancing, drumming, and singing to move energy through for a variety of different reasons in ceremony. And so I really believe that the more we allow ourselves to access, we give ourselves permission to drop in and feel and access the rhythms, the movements, the breath, the awareness, the awakening. It takes us into a place of connection with the truth of who we truly are. And then the illusions and the facades and the programs and the brainwashing and the limited thinking and the fear-based thoughts and all that shit starts to loosen its grip on us. And so it's like, then we start to feel safer to just show up in the world in our truth and like give less fucks about what other people think, and to really see the true beauty of simply being in a body temple and giving ourselves permission to be clunky and funky and like mess up and not be perfect, and to have experiences that allow us to drop into our wholeness. And I really believe that these tools are tools of empowerment, they're tools of healing. They allow us to better know ourselves. So when we do that, like I said before, we come into a place of unconditional loving acceptance for ourselves. And then guess what? An immediate byproduct of that is that we can offer that to everyone and everything. We can better show up in the world. So I really want to offer this word medicine journey to folks that are struggling in the darkness, to folks that are struggling with addiction. Like I was saying earlier, oftentimes we can get wrapped up in addiction to all kinds of things because there's something in us that's seeking divine union, and we're seeking it externally in places that ultimately are to our detriment. It's like we get a moment, we get that moment of but it's not long lasting. We come right back to where we were, and so that's where the addiction lies, right? And so what I'd like to say is that these healing practices, the more we do them, the less we want to do the self-destructive practices. It's just kind of like a law of nature, I think. It's like the more you treat yourself with reverence and more you consciously honor the sacred being that you are, you just have the healthy practices. The unhealthy practices start to fall away. Your whole consciousness changes and expands. So I know I wove through a lot of different dimensions in this conversation. I'm hoping that it was helpful to whoever is on the receiving end of this. Before this, I just asked, may I just be a clear channel for the divine to flow through, and acknowledge also I am divine. I am the divine. This body temple is the conduit for my eternal source that I am. And it's interesting because every morning I have my breathwork practice, and afterwards I meditate in front of my altar, and the more that I do it, the more I'm like, this specific breathwork style, there's moments in it where, extended moments, where I witness this body. I'm starting to get the languaging of biological computer. It's a biological computer machine made out of the earth elements, and it's like it's my spacesuit. It's my temple for my illuminating eternal essence to come and experience the third dimension on earth. And we humans are communal mammals designed by nature to we thrive in connection. Some of our most crucial biological needs are the need for connection, to be connected in community, and to be seen, witnessed, heard, valued, loved, and an integrated, important part of a whole. And so our society sets it up so that we're isolated and we're disconnected and we're polarized and we're competing instead of helping each other. And so these things such as drumming and dancing and singing, the breathing, the yoga, it brings us back into right relationship with ourselves, with each other, with the natural elements of the earth. These are healing and empowering practices. And so I guess I just kind of want to close with this idea that expanded states of consciousness are always here and available, and the more that we can surrender into the truth of who we truly are and surrender to our divinity, then we can accept the wholeness of who we are. We can accept that divine shitstorm of all the things in the past that really fucked us up. When we're on the other side of it, we can look back and go, wow, all those things led me to here. And I can truly say it. All of those things that I would have called obstacles at that time were simply source disguised as obstacles, inviting me into expanded awareness so that I could sit here in this moment and not just say it to you, but not just believe it, but feel it to be true, and therefore know it to be true. So thank you for taking this time to drop in with me. All is well in this moment. All is as it should be. All is an opportunity for expanded consciousness. All is inviting us home. Home meaning in the body, and even deeper than in the body, home to the infinite source that is who you truly are, which is everything and nothing. It's all, and it's the void. Let me see, somebody just wrote a comment. I don't really know how to access comments. Thank you, Kimberly Salerno. Hi, Kimberly. And so it is. All my love